Hello and welcome movie lovers. Hope you're doing well. In this video, we have brought for you. So, let's roll in.
This is the story of a boy who found himself stranded in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, alone with his unwanted friend, a tiger. How he survived and what he discovered about life itself is what you are about to witness. It begins not on the ocean, but in a quiet home in Pondicherry, India. A writer has come to meet P. Patel, who is ready to share his extraordinary journey. Pai explains that he was born in Pondicherry, where his father owned a zoo. His childhood was filled with animals, each cage holding its own mystery, its own life. When P was little, his uncle Francine taught him how to swim. That uncle gave him more than a skill. He gave him a name. Pai's real name, however, was unusual. Piscine Molitor Patel, named after a famous swimming pool in Paris. But as he grew, his classmates mocked him. In English, the word piscine sounded too much like something rude, and Pai became a part of the every jokes during any conversations. But Pai refused to be defeated. The next year, he entered school armed with chalk and determination. On the blackboard, he wrote his new name again and again. He showed everyone that Pai was not just a letter, but an infinite number, never ending. That day, the teasing stopped. That day, he became someone unforgettable. Pai also had an older brother, Ravi, who often teased him but stood by him from then. Their mother usually tells them stories of Lord Krishna from Hindu mythologies. His father, however, was a man of reason. Struck by polio as a child, he had lost faith in prayer and trusted only science. His mother and father were opposites. One believed in the divine, the other in medicine. Between them, while P, who always tried a balance between medicine and religion. But the zoo was where Pai's deepest lessons came. Among all the animals, one stood out, the Bengal tiger, called Richard Parker. The name itself carried a story. Once, a hunter had captured the tiger, and through a clerical error, its name was mixed with the hunter's. Thus, the tiger became Richard Parker. Pai was drawn to the animal, curious and fearless. One day, he tried to approach it with a piece of meat, hoping to befriend it. His father stopped him in time. To teach him a lesson, he tied a goat near the tiger's cage. In a flash, Richard Parker killed it, leaving Pai trembling. "Never forget," his father warned. "A tiger is not your friend. It will take your life without hesitation." As Pai grew older, life seemed to lose its wonder, until he met Anandi in music class. Young love developed, filling his days with color again. But happiness was short-lived. His father announced that the family must leave India. The zoo was failing, and the animals were worth more abroad. They would sell the creatures and start journey in Canada. Heartbroken, Pai promised Anandi he would return. Then, with his family and their animals, he boarded a Japanese cargo ship bound across the Pacific. At the dinner, his mother reminded him gently, "This journey is for your future. Remember that." Pai tried to believe her, even as the ship pressed onward into deeper waters. Days later, they reached the Mariana Trench, the deepest point on Earth. The weather grew restless. Storm clouds gathered. That night, Pai lay asleep, unaware that his life was about to be torn apart. Pai woke to a strange silence, broken only by the roar of wind and the groan of metal. The ship was under a furious storm. Excited, he nudged his brother Ravi awake, insisting they go outside to see the raging sea. Ravi turned over, uninterested. Pai went alone. The moment he stepped onto the deck, he was met by chaos. Rain slashing across his face, waves rising like walls, the storm threw the ship like a toy. At first, Pai felt wonder, a thrill at nature's power. But wonder turned to terror as crewmen stumbled and fell, swallowed by the sea. Within moments, water surged across the deck, pulling everything down. Panicked, Pai ran inside, calling out for his parents, "Mama! Papa!" His cries echoed through water-filled hallways. But the ship was already flooded with water. He could not reach them. He returned to the deck, heart pounding, desperate to save them, but it was too late. The vessel was breaking apart. In the uncontrolled, excited and emotion, Pai was pushed toward a lifeboat. He begged the sailors to wait. His family was still inside, but no one listened. He was thrown overboard, crashing into the small craft. The next instant, the massive cargo ship, with his parents, his brother, and all he had known, disappeared beneath the waves. Pai stays in the lifeboat, sobbing, calling out into the storm, "I couldn't save you." The ocean answered only with thunder. Slowly, the storm eased, leaving Pai adrift in silence. He thought he was alone until the canvas cover rustled and a hyena crawled out, snarling. Shocked, Pi pressed himself back. Soon after, a trembling zebra, injured from the fall, lay in the boat. Then an orangutan clinging to bananas floated near and was pulled aboard. Pi tried to comfort her, but she only stared at the horizon, grieving. Her family had been lost too. The strange company of survivors shared the fragile lifeboat, a PI himself, a zebra, an orangutan, and a hyena. But the sea is no place for peace. Hunger and fear soon drove the hyena into emotions. It killed the zebra, tearing into its flesh. Pi screamed, trying to stop it, but the animal was unstoppable. Blood painted the boat. The orangutan fought back, furious, but the hyena attacked again and killed her. Pi watched in horror as his last companion fell. He reached for a knife, trembling with rage, ready to face the beast himself. And then, the true terror revealed itself. From beneath the tarpaulin, out of the shadows, came Richard Parker. The Bengal tiger rose in a blaze of muscle and fury. With one strike, he killed the hyena. Now he became a king of Beth, the boat, and P.I.'s life. Pi froze. His fathers warned him earlier, that story still in his mind. A tiger is not your friend. It will take your life without hesitation. Terrified, he quickly tied the life jackets into a small raft and lowered it into the water, clinging to it as his only hope of staying away from Tiger, Richard Parker. Yet the tiger did not attack him immediately. It stayed on the boat, pacing, growling, claiming its territory. When Pi tried to climb back, Richard Parker roared, forcing him into the sea again and again. Exhausted, Pi finally returned to the lifeboat after the tiger calmed. Searching through the emergency supplies, he found biscuits, water, a survival manual, and a whistle. The manual advised him, keep yourself busy. Never drink seawater. Collect rainwater. Hope for rescue. So Pi built small systems to survive, catching rain with buckets, writing in a diary, clinging to routine. Still, every moment was shadowed by Tiger, Richard Parker, the living storm that shared his prison. 9 days passed. The boy and the tiger floated together, adrift in an endless ocean, both fighting to survive. Pi soon realized that if he wanted to survive in the vast ocean, he would have to find a way to control Richard Parker. A tiger couldn't be domesticated like a pet, but perhaps he could train him, just enough to keep himself alive. He began experimenting with circus-like tricks. Standing on his small raft, Pi shook the lifeboat to make the tiger uncomfortable, blowing his whistle loudly to establish authority. For a moment it felt as though Richard Parker recognized his power, but the illusion shattered quickly. With one mighty swipe, the tiger reminded Pi that the boat was under his domain. Fear grew inside Pi. Hunger would eventually drive the tiger to attack him. Pi tried to catch fish, but at first nothing came to his hook. Desperate, he dove into the water himself, but failed again. Suddenly, he sees a giant shark surged past, and Pi scrambled back onto his boat, his heart racing. That close brush with death taught him how tough his survival really was. Still, Pi did not give up. Using the survival kit, he built a stronger raft and managed to catch his first fish. Being vegetarian, the act of killing the fish broke his heart. He whispered, "I'm sorry," before offering it to Richard Parker. For the first time, the tiger accepted food from him. A fragile understanding began to form between them. That night, the sea turned magical, shining with slightly wavering light under the sky. Pi marveled at the beauty, but the wonder was shattered when a massive whale surfaced. Its lost balance Pi's supplies into the water. His carefully rationed food was ruined. Days turned into weeks. Pi fought exhaustion, storms, and the unending hunger. Flying fish rained down during one storm, filling the boat with flapping bodies. Richard Parker grabbed it while Pi forced himself to eat raw fish, but knowing he had no choice. The boy began to see the truth. He could not destroy the tiger. He had to coexist with him. Bit by bit, using fish as rewards, Pi trained Richard Parker to respond to his whistle. The tiger was still wild, but it slowly started accepting the boy. Both of them were just trying to survive together. One evening, dolphins leapt alongside the boat, their sleek bodies glowing in the moonlight. Pi's heart filled with hope. Then in the distance he spotted a ship. His spirit soared. Rescue! He lit a flare and waved desperately. But the ship passed by without noticing. Crushed, Pi sank into lost hope. Yet the ocean held mysteries beyond his sorrow. That night he gazed into the water, and he saw the faces of his parents and the zoo animals. Were they visions or memories haunting him? Even Richard Parker seemed transfixed, staring into the deep as though he too saw ghosts. Pi kept his diary, recording every scene and experiences, every thought. But as another furious storm erupted, the wind tore the notebook from his grasp, now his words into the hands of sea. Lightning ripped the sky apart, thunder shook the boat, and for that moment, Pi felt as if the very gods were revealing themselves. Terrified yet, Pi opened the tarpaulin, wanting Richard Parker to witness the spectacle. But the tiger cowered, trembling in fear. For the first time, Pi understood. The great predator was himself for his opponent. Pi looked at Richard Parker and felt sorry. Water was filling the lifeboat again. Sadly, he noticed that the raft he had tied earlier had drifted away. Determined, he tied it back, then collapsed on the boat and slowly went into sleep. When he opened his eyes, he saw even the mighty tiger lying down, fast asleep. Stepping outside, Pi noticed the storm had finally cleared. The ocean was calm, the sky open again. But both he and Richard Parker were weak, so weak that Pi feared neither of them would survive. He thought the tiger was at death's door. Pi moved closer, rested the tiger's head on his lap, and whispered a prayer to God. "If it is my time, I am ready." The next morning, Pi woke to a miracle. Land. An island appears before him, covered in grass and trees. Starving, he rushed ashore and chewed on the green plants and fruits. Exploring further, he found thousands of meerkats living in the trees. For the first time in months, Pi felt a strange sense of safety. He swam in freshwater pools, where fish bones lay scattered, and even set up a bed in the trees for the night. But soon, the island revealed its dark secret. As evening came, all the meerkats climbed up into the trees in fear. Richard Parker hurried back onto the lifeboat. Pi stayed in the trees and slept. At midnight, he awoke to see the pools glowing, the water turning acidic and killing fish instantly. The island itself was carnivorous, alive and dangerous. Next day, Pi found a fruit on a tree. When he opened it, inside was a human tooth. Horror filled him. He realized the truth. This island had consumed other humans before. It was God's way of telling him, "Leave now, or you too will die." Pi quickly gathered food and water, carried Richard Parker back to the boat, and pushed off. He knew if he left the tiger behind, the island would devour him. Together, they set sail once again. At last, after more days at sea, the lifeboat reached the coast of Mexico. Pi collapsed weakly onto the sand, too weak to stand. Richard Parker stepped onto land, paused for a moment, then quietly walked into the jungle. He never turned to look back. That was the hardest moment for Pi. The tiger, who had been his only companion, simply vanished without farewell. Local villagers soon found Pi and carried him to a hospital. Later, 2 officers from the shipping company arrived. They wanted to know how the ship had sunk. Pi told them everything: the storm, the lifeboat, Richard Parker. But they refused to believe him. They wanted a realistic story, something their company could accept. So Pi gave them another story. In this one, there were no animals, only people. The injured sailor was the zebra, his mother was the orangutan, the cruel cook was the hyena, and Pi himself became the tiger. In this version, it was humans who killed each other, and Pi who finally killed the cook to survive. A brutal story, without beauty or faith. When the writer later asked Pi which version was true, Pi only smiled and said, "Both stories are true, but tell me, which one do you prefer?" The writer replied softly, "The one with the tiger, it's the better story." Pi nodded. That matters, because hope and prayers are there. Years later, the writer learned Pi had married Anandi, the girl from his youth, and built a quiet, happy life. His journey had ended not just in survival, but in faith, love, and peace. And so ends the story of P. Patel, a boy, a tiger, and the endless ocean. A tale of hope, courage, and the mysterious hand of God. Now, if this journey connects with you, I would love to see your thoughts. Feel free to like and leave a comment.
Thanks for watching, and hope you have enjoyed this. See you in next amazing video. Till then, take care and best wishes, but don't forget to like and subscribe.